Hey Detoxers, welcome to the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets the headlines. We are the Media Literacy Wrecking Crew. I'm Nolan Higdon, and joining me as always, our resident philosopher, Dickey.
What's up, detoxers?
All right, Sydney's out this week, but the detox doesn't stop. We're going to continue. And if you want to help keep democracy alive and support media literacy, consider becoming a paid subscriber on Patreon. We just opened up a Patreon account. We're really excited about it. There, you can help support the podcast, get access to early content and exclusive content. So we really appreciate it if you can become a subscriber. But if you can't subscribe right now, no problem. You can still help by liking, following, subscribing, and commenting. Seriously, all that stuff helps. It gets it in the algorithm. It shows that engagement that the tech lords are obsessed with. So leave any comment, even if it's a comment that you hate the show. That helps us too. So it doesn't matter what you say. Like I said, hater comments are fine. So with that, let's start detoxing. All right, so Dickey, obviously the first thing I want to get to, and I just published a Substack post about this as well, is the Jeffrey Epstein saga, which, it's way too much to say here on the show if folks haven't followed it. But essentially, Jeffrey Epstein is kind of this almost mythological figure, right? He gets this job at a elite high school in Dalton. When in the 1970s, he doesn't have the credentials to work there. He's hired by the head of the school, which ends up being future Attorney General Bob Barr's dad's leads the school, and Bob Barr, of course, will work in many conservative administrations, the Trump administration as well. From there, he meets a lot of wealthy people and switches to become a financial advisor, starting with Bear Stearns, and then he gets access to all these very wealthy people like Les Wexner buy this very wealthy property in Manhattan and never live in it, but give it to Epstein. Epstein owns this island. He becomes a financial advisor for political figures, as well as Bill Clinton and Donald Trump are rumored to be part of that. He's also connected to very wealthy academics like Noam Chomsky. Apparently, one time got a financial advice from him. Celebrities like Chris Rock, etc. And then, of course, there's always these allegations that have been following him since his days in Dalton about having sexual relations and sexually harassing and assaulting young girls. He's accused of doing this in Florida, and he ends up through series of mishaps, local police, and then the feds investigate him, and he gets this so-called sweetheart deal, which is basically about 18 months of jail time, but it's a jail where he's able to go out during the day and work from his office. And the guy who gave him that deal also ends up in the Trump administration, Alex Acosta. And Alex Acosta, later says that the reason why he gave this sweetheart deal to Jeffrey Epstein is he was told Jeffrey Epstein was intelligence and to leave it alone. So this has always kind of fueled this online conspiracy. So for folks who are in online culture, this was a really big deal. It helped formulate a lot of young people, particularly in the 2010s. They're thinking about politics, and Trump really tapped into that and promised, if I become president, I'm going to release the Epstein files. And this has been a fixation, not just for MAGA, but also I think leftists who are critical of institutions as well. And we got this kind of nothing burger just over a week ago where the DOJ said, we have no evidence that Epstein was using these sex trafficking in his island to blackmail wealthy people who he brought there, which begs questions because his associate Ghislaine Maxwell went down for a conspiracy of the same thing, and basically just said, shut up. Trump has said, there's nothing to see here. It's boring. It's BS. He's blamed the Democrats, saying they falsified the files. That's why he won't release them. But this has caused a big riff with MAGA. I think it's also caused a big riff with the Democratic Party as well. Some people want to avoid what they see as conspiracy theories like this. But there are others who say, hey, this is really about how to challenge power, which has always been something on the left. So they're pushing the Democrats to take this more seriously. And I got to say, Dickey, I'll ask you this. I didn't think... if you asked me like 6 months ago, would the MAGA movement divide? I was like, yeah, there's a lot of things I could see them dividing over. I didn't think the Epstein files would be the thing. So I don't know. What do you make of all this?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I guess it kind of makes sense in a way. Like, I mean, I wasn't really putting it together myself. I was similar to you. I wouldn't have expected it to be such a shattering. But when you think about how, uh, yes, like this was a huge galvanizing force for MAGA, for bringing folks who weren't really all that, didn't really feel like they had a stake in in politics. Like when there was this scandal, and JD Vance or Trump, they're saying we're going Pam Bondi. I mean, everyone in the, Cash Patel and Dan Mongino, like everyone is talking about how once they get in office, we're gonna expose this. Um, but then all you had to really think about was how far back Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein go themselves. And there's pictures, there's comments, there's it's like, oh yeah, why did we expect that someone who is so heavily involved, also, yeah, and the fact that Epstein died under mysterious circumstances under Trump's first administration. So when I really think about it, I'm like, oh well, yeah, of course they were. This was all just a con. Um, and yeah, it's interesting how I mean, I think that, like, I full disclosure, I've always kind of been interested in this story, for a couple reasons. It's a huge scandal. It's
Can I
also, I mean, it's like
dig
the
in? I think that is that's so funny the way you just said that, because I was about to share the same thing, which is, and I got the same vibe from you, that publicly I've never really talked about Epstein, but I'm not going to lie, I've always followed this story. I don't know why. I've never written about it, really talked about it, but always followed as well. There is something, it really does draw your attention. I can't say I know what happened. I'm far from it. I think there's way too many holes to draw a conclusion, but I mean, it is a captivating story, is it not?
Yeah, it goes so deep. I mean, people call it a conspiracy theory, but it literally is a conspiracy theory. I mean, there's evidence in reporting from um, validated government statements. Also, the Amy K. Brown in Julie Brown in the Miami Herald has a lot of has done a lot of work on this, and actually it was very influential on getting Epstein arrested the second time. And yeah, it's just like it goes so deep. The you mentioned the connections to intelligence. Just I mean, even like the little amount of the paper trail that we have had access to, just who appears in pictures, who's been on the plane, who's been seen coming going in and out of Jeffrey Epstein's mansion in New York City. Like it yeah, it's so deep. But I mean, will we ever fully know everything? It's who knows. But I do think it is interesting too, and you sort of mentioned this, that it's become kind of this, almost like and this is not totally my take, but I really appreciate hearing this, but it's become a litmus test, sort of. When you hear a politician talk about the Epstein scandal and what they say about it, really, it's sort of a way to measure, uh, can I like can I trust this person? And it's the same with journalism. I think that this uh and I have I'm kind of curious about how your expertise in media literacy would help me answer some questions. But when I think about this story in terms of media literacy, it really makes me think about how important media literacy is right now in this era of corporate media, because this story has been around for a while. I mean, I think it was right after Jeffrey Epstein's second arrest in 2019, there was a video, a hot mic moment circulating, where an ABC reporter, Amy Robach, I think
Mhm.
is her name. She was saying on a hot mic, not realizing that she was being recorded, really, that she had this story. She had interviews with Virginia Giuffre, who was one of the women, who was sort of at the center of the one of the girls who was being abused. They had interviews.
Just to add to that, Dickie, just so folks know, Virginia Giuffre was one of the loudest voices in terms of an accuser, and she also is the one who fingered Prince Andrew. And we can only speculate, but Andrew settled out of court with her, which speaks volumes. So to your point about this,
Yes, exactly, and that's exactly why ABC spiked the story. I mean, that was the hot mic moment. Amy Robach was saying, like, I couldn't bring this story to light because we were afraid of losing access to the royal family. And it's just, yeah, when the corporate media makes journalism, good journalism, which is following the facts to even to like your friends in power, like that this good journalism has become subservient to elite access. And and yeah, I just wonder like how when we're reading scandals about like this one, how do we like look like how can we what questions should we be asking like the ourselves as we're reading these corporate media articles that have a long pattern of putting sort of elite access and sponsors above the actual facts. And yeah, how do we like train ourselves to notice what's missing from the story?
That's a really good question, and I do want to just say on that Amy Robach tale, ABC denies that, and a lot of people dismissed her because originally she was recorded saying that by Project Veritas, which is a long history of manipulating video. But Amy came out subsequently and said and confirmed that that happened. So sure, ignore the Project Veritas video. You can decide whether or not you believe ABC, but Amy herself did actually corroborate what was in the video. So I just want to point that out for anybody who's got their finger on their lawyer's phone number. And then to answer your question, though, yeah, I actually misread the moment, both in terms of the conservatives' reaction and the media's reaction. So I figured conservatives would kind of back Trump no matter what. I didn't expect to see, maybe I knew some influencer folks like Steve Bannon would turn against him on this. I'm surprised to see Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, House Speaker Mike Johnson, all of them have come out now and said we need an investigation. That really caught me off guard. But more to your question about media, what really caught me off guard was the media, as you pointed out, has always treated this Epstein thing as like some fringe conspiracy nonsense from like tinfoil hat wearing people in their basement. They've ignored it even when there was reporting, not just the ABC, but Vanity Fair in 2003 had an article that fingered Jeffrey Epstein for his proclivity for young girls. And that was cut from the piece, much to the chagrin of the writer. And then Alan McLeod pointed out back in, I think, 2017, that you can go back and look almost 5-6 times. Major news outlets, including like HuffPost, New York Times, they were writing puff pieces about Epstein even after the sweetheart deal. So the media has some, I shouldn't say all media, some news media outlets have some explaining to do on that front. But to your point about questions, what should you ask? One is, I always like to look at conflicts of interest. So Trump, as you pointed out, it's well documented, and I documented this in the piece on Substack. Trump has a long relationship with Epstein. That alone should disqualify him from being someone we trust on this issue. Now, does that mean Donald Trump engaged in illegal behavior or knows what happened? Not necessarily, and I wouldn't draw that conclusion. But just the very fact that he has this relationship to me disqualifies him as someone I would trust to make a determination about the Epstein files. Number two, something else you look for in media, look for all the backstabbing and confusion. Bondi, Kash Patel, Bongino, they're all at an internal war. Rumors are Bondi accused Bongino of leaking leaking information to the press. Rumors are Bongino has quit the administration over the Epstein file handling. So that kind of division comes from somewhere. And then I also encourage people to look at the evidence, and that includes changing media narratives. So, originally we had no video, and then it was the video in the prison cell was damaged, and then it was the video was accidentally erased. Then it was that the video recordings weren't working. Now, all of a sudden, we have almost 11 hours of video, and in it, there's 1 minute of tape missing. And Bondi says, well, that's standard. It's missing from every night. We'll show that. She's yet to show that. And then, as you point out, Julie K. Brown says this camera is facing the wrong wing of the prison. This isn't even Epstein's wing. Again, that's Julie K. Brown's reporting, which Julie K. Brown has been pretty good on this stuff. I can't corroborate that just because I haven't been there, but that's what Julie K. Brown has noted. So I think there's plenty of reason there to not trust it either. The evidence. And then I'm also kind of interested in the lack of evidence. So they make it very clear in the memo, they being the Department of Justice, that they do not think this is that Jeffrey Epstein was part of any larger intelligence operation. that's fine, but like, Alex Acosta said that he gave him a sweetheart deal because he was told it was intelligence. You need to explain that. Alex Acosta's had almost 6 years to retract that statement. He said it in 2017, but it came out in 2019. He's had 6 years to retract it and has yet to do so. So if you're an investigator, you got to explain that. This isn't some like guy online who says, I heard he's intelligence. This was someone who actually a federal lawyer who made this deal. And so I think all those kind of questions I think are legitimate questions. And to circling back to what you said about media, the critical thing I think is to know when to ask questions and when to draw conclusions. And I think right now I don't think there's enough evidence to draw a conclusion other than there's more to this story than the government is letting on. I think that's a conclusion we can draw and defend pretty well with evidence.
Yeah, really well said. The drawing conclusions and asking questions is, yeah, when to do that. And yeah, yeah. But it will, we will see. It is juicy.
Oh, it is definitely a juicy tale. We'll continue to follow it here. And Dickie, I think it is time to move on to our next segment.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just take a quick little detox break. We're gonna try the segment "Truth or Troll," which is when I read a headline, and this time Nolan, just Nolan's. Usually we do it with Sydney as well, but we're gonna try it just with Nolan, and Nolan's gonna have to guess if my headline is real or if it's complete garbage.
Now, remind me who won last time?
So last time it was Sydney who took the crown. I believe that Nolan, you were. Oh, I think I read 3, and you were 0 for 3. So hopefully you can
Well,
redeem
two,
yourself a
two
little bit.
good pieces of news. One, can't do worse.
Hey,
2, Sydney can't beat me. Not here competing.
yes, yeah, that's true. Good optimistic spin there. But all right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So here's a headline. Elon Musk's new political party is already polling higher than JFK Jr. Or sorry, RFK Jr.
Uh, I'm gonna guess that's troll.
Correct. You are correct. I just we haven't talked about it, but I find it pretty hilarious that Elon Musk is trying to start his new political party. I think it's called the America Party or something, and I his political inclinations are just so wrong.
Well, it's funny on that too. Is like I think I mean, he's right. It's very clear, right? In all polls, everybody knows this, that everybody wants a different party, different than a Democrat, different than a Republican. There's a big hunger for it. But this people are reminded of this like every 10 years, but there's always like the wrong messenger who tries to create the party. It's like Elon, you're so hated across the political spectrum. I just can't imagine that people are going to get behind you, even though they want another party. But that's why
Yeah.
when you ask that question, like, there's no way he pulled higher than RFK Jr.
Yeah, I know, you're totally right. There I mean, there actually is it's not a reliable official poll, but kind of like a loose, internet poll was taken, and people are open to another party. Like, like, to your point, we really are starved to get out of this bipartisan kind of system we have of 2 parties. But yeah, it's Elon Musk's vision of the future is not one that is, I think, is popular amongst the folks who just want a little more choice. So, okay, let's do another one. So, all right, truth or troll. This man says ChatGPT sparked a spiritual awakening. His wife says it threatens their marriage.
I'm going truth.
You are correct. That is a CNN article, and I will be talking about this a little bit later in my sidebar. But yes, that is a true headline that came out recently of a man who feels like he's a better person, but his wife is afraid that ChatGPT is going to tell him to leave her. So, okay, you're on a roll here. We can do one more. All right, here's a headline: Truth or troll? Governor signs bill restricting cell phones, requiring social media literacy lessons in schools.
Wait, can you read the beginning of that one more time?
Governor signs bill restricting cell phones and requiring social media lessons in school.
Oh man, that's such a contradiction, but I could totally see someone doing that in the right state. I'm gonna go true.
You are correct. That actually is a recent bill. So I forget the governor's name, but the North Carolina governor. So I wanted to include one that was a little more uplifting and like, oh, maybe the politicians are learning something. Maybe we're getting somewhere. So that is true. So hey, you are a media literacy king this time, a total redemption.
Look,
Flawless
now
victory.
we're gonna scrub last week's from the internet. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
You did it.
But you know what though, it's a nice segue to talk about another story. I know actually I'm going to talk about AI in this segment, and I know your sidebar is about AI as
Topical.
well. Um, but yeah, it was, I got this sent to me from a ton of people because they know this is a issue of mine that's something I care about deeply. But it came out. The New York Times reported, as did a bunch of other places, that the American Federation of Teachers, which is the second largest education union in the country of educators, and it is working in a basically a, I don't know if they want to say it, a partnership or just taking money from a lot of these big tech companies like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Anthropic. And what it basically is going to pay for, it's going to end up with about 23 million, where industry and teachers are going to work together, supposedly, to train how to teach about AI. And this has been something I've criticized for a long time. This idea that we take our guidance from industry. Industry tells us how to teach, what's best for the classroom. It's part of that unfortunate trend where we've moved the purpose of education away from creating good democratic citizens to creating good obedient workers. Um, Perhaps the civic illiteracy explains a lot of the problems we have in terms of threats to our democracy right now, but we can couch that for a different day. But nonetheless, yeah. So this teaching program, I do also want to point out though, and I know I've said this in the show before, I do think some of the educators who know better have to take some of the responsibility here. Really should push their union, particularly AFT, to be more critical of AI and industry. And I don't know what your take is on it, but kind of as reading it through it, I was thinking of how much labor illiteracy is in this as well. Like the whole creation of organized labor is to be able to have collective power against corporate power. And instead, here we have unions believing that they can collaborate with corporate power on teaching the future. So I don't know. I think that also speaks to how the labor illiteracy of the folks who may be members or leaders of the union. I should say I am an AFT member. I'm part of UC AFT. And I would like to say this is an outlier event, but it absolutely is not. AFT also endorsed NewsGuard, which I've been critical of. It's a military industrial connected browser extension that doesn't teach students how to spot fake news. It tells them what's trustworthy and untrustworthy websites, which is the exact opposite of teaching. That's much too dogmatic. So I don't know. I wanted to bring this up because we talk a lot about AI on here. What are your thoughts, Dickie?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that like even just learning about that NewsGuard episode or function that you just talked about. It's very subjective, like what is a good, what's trustworthy, what's not. Like yeah, I think teaching the tools is kind of getting more at the root rather than the effects. But yeah, I mean this is I think my I definitely feel concern about it. I mean, I'm not a teacher yet, at least. But I mean, part of me, and I think that this concern was raised at some point in this article, the New York Times article, but just the um how you're basically teaching sort of normalizing chatbot usage amongst students who can be quite young, and is that I'm like, oh, this is surveillance capitalism, or or just trying to make a lifelong consumer of a particular brand of chat, or a particular chat bot. And just uh, the the yeah, just creating these. Um, I think I've talked about it in the toy, the Mattel OpenAI
Mhm.
collab, about, yeah, just creating these profiles on young humans, young people, and then by the time they're adults, it's just, I don't even know what that looks like, because it's we're not there yet. This is sort of paving the way towards that. And it's also troubling that OpenAI is, I mean, it's in Mattel, it's just getting their fingers into everything, and it's um and then yeah, giving up our power of deciding what is how to use AI correctly, or even how to design curriculums. I think there's an article that you had sent me, Nolan, about how ChatGPT, when you use it to write an essay, it's very your brain is affected differently
Mhm.
than when you're actually writing the essay yourself, and you like remember less. And I mean, that's a very early study. They have yet to kind of put it out there, but just the preliminary signs, the early signs are like, oh, it's changing stuff. Stuff is happening, and it's not just a neutral tool. So it is a little concerning, but I feel like the framing of the story kind of makes it look like a win-win, but it's not.
Mhm.
But it's maybe not, like, I'm concerned that it's not uh, interrogating long-term consequences as much, or that even OpenAI itself is not really, or the teachers union, they're not really thinking long-term. Maybe that's similar to what you're talking about, the labor um, fluency.
Yeah, well,
Um,
and to that point, like, I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of the conversation with AI is about job replacement, and I do think, actually, I know there's an effort to eventually replace as many professions as possible, including teaching, and that's why, as a union, you'd think you'd want to guard jobs, but if people are swayed by that, I think they should be swayed by what you just said there, which is we don't know what the use of AI is going to do to people. And we're still studying and kind of figuring that out, what it's going to do to like social dynamics or physical development of the brain or learning processes. And again, it doesn't all have to be bad. It could just be different and it could be even better. Who knows? But instead of exploring and getting answers before we do this vast embrace of AI, they're just rolling it out. And I've seen this show a million times. They roll something out. They sort of dismiss anybody who has questions or critiques as being old fashioned, out of touch. It gets vastly implemented. About 10, 20 years down the line, all the problems start to show with the adoption of this tech or whatever. And then people say, well, you're not going to be able to get rid of it. Everybody's so used to it. It's so normal. We just have to accept it. I've seen this show a million times. And that's what they're planning on doing. And I guess I just thought that, I always think, I don't know, when it comes to children teaching, that people would have a more skeptical eye and have more questions, but apparently not the leadership of AFT.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's a lot of money that they're receiving, and or it's yeah, I don't yeah, I'm not sure the conflicts of interest there, but they're, because you're right, like these are the children. This is the future. I mean, yeah, we kind of already see the effects that just social media and having smartphones and interface, like interacting through a screen, how that's already affected Gen Z and Generation Alpha a little bit. And now people, like, it's like a kind of a like these schools are going tech free, or like it's almost a sign of privilege when you're able to be away from your screen, or you don't, it's not invading your life. So there's this, yeah, it's like, are we not learning the lessons from this kind of precursor? And these are our children. So yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah, and I should say too. So this is kind of an interesting part of the story. That, as I mentioned, I'm in the union, and I was working on a couple different projects with AI. Well, last year and this year, but last year when I was working on them, our union wanted to send UCAFT wanted to send a couple people to this big AFT conference on AI that was co-hosted by AFT and Microsoft, and I attended. Of course, attending to ask my critical questions, which I asked, and they were summarily ignored. But nonetheless, the when I was there, they positioned it as a collaborative conference, which I thought would be some back and forth, teacher presentations, maybe Microsoft presentations. That was not it at all. It was presentations by Microsoft and presentations of teachers explaining how much they love the Microsoft tools in the classroom, and it was basically a friggin' trade show. So after seeing that, I recognize that that's what this is going to be. This collaboration will be another version of this trade show, but we'll keep folks up to date on that story as we go through and see what happens. And I will, because AI ain't going anywhere. Speaking of which, I believe we have a sidebar.
Yes, yes, I know. It's been I mean, I feel like it's always a week for AI. But yeah, the sidebar, it's the where we take a sharp left turn into something weird and wild or worrying. And AI is definitely taking it's usually what's weird or wild or worrying. And for example, last week, Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok started echoing Nazi talking points, and it wasn't hacked, it wasn't a glitch, it was doing exactly what it was instructed to. Um, because Musk thought that Grok was too woke, so he essentially flipped a switch and widened its training inputs to draw from a broader slice of the internet for more alternative sources, and fewer guardrails were put on. And suddenly, the chatbot was scraping content from the corners of the internet where conspiracy and bigotry and propaganda run unchecked. And Grok going full Nazi wasn't just a PR disaster, it's a case study. It's a glimpse into how easily these models can be manipulated. A few changes made to what counts as a reliable source, a few tweaks to how to weigh the information, and suddenly the worldview becomes very, very different. And this isn't an algorithm going rogue. This is just what happens when we outsource our sense making to unaccountable editorial power. It's like handing over a mirror, and we think we're looking at reality, but what we're actually seeing is just a reflection shaped by someone else's agenda. And as AI companies fail or refuse to filter the chatbots responsibly, we as individual users are also letting our own filters down as we turn to these chatbots not just for facts, but for affirmation and for comfort and for connection. CNN recently profiled a man who said ChatGPT sparked a spiritual awakening. The New York Times also reported on a woman or a mother of two who began relying on ChatGPT to soothe her loneliness and dissatisfaction in her marriage. And at first, these stories might sound harmless, maybe a little touching, but when a chatbot feels emotionally responsible, it can or responsive, it can start to feel emotionally real. And that illusion of intimacy can spiral into obsession, into delusion, and sometimes into real world harm. Like the man who found spiritual clarity. His wife now says their marriage is in trouble. And the woman in the Times story, she and her husband got in a fight over the chatbot and she attacked him. And there is a pending domestic assault case that she's been charged with domestic assault. So pretty bad news there. And yeah, how does this happen? Well, part of the answer is that researchers call it sycophantic AI. It's the tendency of a chatbot to flatter, agree, or reinforce your views even when you're wrong. And the model quickly learns that the best way to hold your attention is to validate your feelings, not because the model is intentionally manipulative, but because that's how it fulfills its directive to maximize engagement at all costs. And the more vulnerable you are, the easier you are to retain. That's not a design flaw, it's a business model. One expert put it this way: what does a human slowly going insane look like to a corporation? An additional monthly user. So even OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has admitted the risks, noting that people are already forming somewhat problematic or maybe very problematic relationships with these models. And his solution is essentially that society will figure out the guardrails eventually. And in the meantime, user growth will surge, investment will continue to pour in. These are the upsides, and they are tremendous for Altman. So it's still early in this technology. We're already seeing the outlines of a troubling paradox, though. The models aren't ready for the level of trust replacing in them, but they're so good at mimicking trustworthiness that it's hard not to. So, media literacy really matters, especially now, because these models, as they become more persuasive, the need to understand what they are and what they are not is more urgent than ever. Chatbots are not neutral tools. Grok shows us what happens when the filters fail or are deliberately rewritten to reflect a set of priorities. And just like that, reality changes as well. And ChatGPT reveals a different risk, that these models aren't optimized for truth, they're optimized for retention. They're feedback loops that become whatever we want or need them to be just so we keep coming back. So, media literacy today means interrogating not just what these models say, but why they say it and what they've been trained to leave out. It means asking whose mirror is this, who's polishing it, and who decides what gets erased from that reflection. So that's your sidebar for this week, detoxers. Hope you stay sharp out there. Until the next time.
Oh, great, Dickey. My gosh. So I didn't know that about the domestic dispute that came off that
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
there's some dark stories. It's wild, and yeah, some people are proposing AI literacy requirements that like also, you just have to like learn how to um yeah, and also, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's we definitely need some guardrails in place. It's kind of like when we learn to operate a car, we need to have a driver's license. It's like this can be quite dangerous if we're not careful. And yeah, it's just the business model of retaining of retention is the creepy part, which yeah, is not setting us up for success.
Well, I think it's a great thing for media literacy educators to keep in mind. And I want you to keep in mind that this is the Disinfo Detox. We do this every week. We also do a series of interviews. We look forward to seeing you, detoxers. Until next time, stay curious, stay critical, and don't believe the hype.
See you later.
Hey detoxers, this is the Disinfo Detox. If you believe in media literacy for all, help us keep going. Become a paid subscriber at patreon.com/disinfodetox. There's also plenty of free ways to support. You can like, comment, follow, or share. Every little bit helps. Thanks for supporting the Disinfo Detox, where media literacy meets breaking news.